Now, when we look at the world, we see much glorification of the name Jesus, and some are inclined to think that he's one of the real guides of life. Now, how did this name become so famous? And is Jesus in the pantheon of real guides? What is his relationship with the real guides, or talking from that real life position?
That's a fun question, isn't it? And so the first part is that, someone asked me that question. It's been asked many times. And so my latest answer is, it's like kind of like, well, what is Jesus doing now, or what have you? My answer was, he's out there somewhere doing something. That was my answer. Okay. And so really that's all I know. I don't follow Jesus or track him down or whatever. And also the question is that how did Jesus become so famous? Well, or what we say popular, what have you. And it's very simple. And that is that those who rule the world do the best marketing ploy of all, don't they? So they really marketed the heck out of him. Just like Michael Jackson. Sorry, Michael, but I pick on Michael Jackson too. And everybody thinks he's a sensation because he can do the moonwalk and, make funny noises with his voice. Okay, fine. Have fun with that. The end result is you got nothing. That's very real. But if you think it's something, have fun. So, is Jesus with the real guides, etc.? Well, it would seem to be so, wouldn't it? But actually, Jesus has free will. And he can do whatever he wants. And actually, Jesus got himself in trouble because he was with the real guides. Anybody that's really going to go, you might say, all the way, usually ends up with the boys. And so he was there for a while, but he learned some of the psychic tricks, and that's where the healing stuff comes in. And this is really hugely promoted. In other words, the world controllers, they like to promote magic and hocus pocus, because that's exactly what it is. It would seem that, healings and laying on of hands, raising the dead and all these things do have a place in life. Well, they do, but they're really one-dimensional because you're just manipulating phenomena is what you're doing. It's kind of like GMO. You're just manipulating phenomena. And yes, the vegetables that we eat are, they're naturally grown here, but you can magically change them if you can, and it would seem as though they have, but they really haven't. And so it really becomes something that it's not, isn't it? Yes. But it did seem to click for a while, didn't it? Till people started to wake up to where the GMO food was not working. And so these things that seem to be working and what have you, and when it comes to the actual person, Jesus, what is he doing today? Well, frankly, I really don't know, and I'm really not interested. But yes, we have huge marketing ploy here, and that's what the world mainly is. And so every moment each person decides to see through it or not. And is it about popularity that counts? And so it seems to be. And what is the most popular, you might say, situation on the planet? And that is to stay unaware, dumbed down, and basically not know what you're doing. And that seems to be the most popular thing. And it's still being stupid is cool. And that's really what it is. It comes to the point that, after you do the same thing so many lifetimes, it's kind of like having the same relationship with the same person lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and it never works out. Basically, for the most part, relationships don't work out because eventually each person realizes they're really on their own journey, but they can still have a relationship like the boys do, but it's not the same type of relationship. It's a being to being, and it's not it's not an emotional, personal relationship trying to keep it together with sticky things. So again, you have that, but for the most part, it doesn't work out. So with everything that we've come to know with the marketing ploy of Jesus and all the cute stories from the Bible and all these things that do relate to certain things, and they make it relate to certain things. They set up the prophecies, etc. It's all premeditated to where it looks like. In other words, it's a big stage show. And so the end result is once you recognize all this phenomena that has taken place, kind of like a car driving off after a wedding and they've tied all these tin cans to it, makes a lot of noise and seems like a big deal, but it's just a lot of trash. And so it's not about good or bad or indifferent. It's not about being for nor against, or I'm not saying it's bad or criticizing it. It's just is what it is, and it goes where it goes, which basically just keeps a person in creation. So, again, I would say that what has been done with the idea of Jesus has been excellent marketing ploy. These guys are good. They're really good at marketing ploy. And guess what? We can do the same thing. So I play the same game. So I have fun with the marketing of what we're doing to show people how to make better choices and eventually become self-sufficient, to where the world here with their marketing ploy, they really force the issue of being dependent and unaware and distorted. That's their marketing ploy. And that's all of it. But they make it look good in a certain way that you would think, literally, that it's all good. But it's really not once you see through it. So this is the adventure. Yes, thank you for asking, Charles. Go ahead.
I just want to imagine what would happen if all those in the various spiritual and religious paths, they hear about the bold proclamations of the new presentation and the new man. Well, I imagine that some will ask, are you speaking from a high moral, ethical, philosophical, occult, or spiritual ground? What is your base that you speak with such authority? So what propels you to make such bold claims? They might ask. So I wonder how to approach this question, because people will always want to know from where you're coming. So can Duane elaborate a bit on this?
Well, again, we create references to provide people with some type of explanation. Okay, we want to do that. That's just a courtesy to all of us, of course. But as it's kind of like signing up for and Chris was there signing up for the military. And I'm sure that Chris first saw some couple Army guys there at a table, maybe at a event or somewhere out there in the corner somewhere, or in a store with their brochures. And it all looked kind of cool. It's like, oh, gee, joining the Army or the military, it's fun. There was a movie called, with Goldie Hawn, called Private Benjamin. And it was comedy. It's really good. I suggest to see it. It's fun. And she eventually joined the military in the movie. And but while she was being presented, this this marketing ploy of, oh, how great it is to be in the military and this and that. And guess what? You even get your own condo. Yeah, the government will provide that, etc. And so, they could say anything. And so as we go through, this process, but eventually, as Chris, he went through that part, and maybe he went home and he took the brochure there. I'm just making this up as I go, Chris, but he possibly went through it. It's like telling his parents, hey, I'm going to join the military. This is going to be great, whatever. But as you go through the process and finally you get to boot camp and go through that hell and all that, and that's nothing compared to going out into the field and actually facing the enemy because they want to get rid of you. And that's a given, all right? There's no considerations there. They just shoot, you're gone. That's it. So you could have went through all that training. First day you go out there, boing, you're gone. And it happens all the time. So this is how this is. And so, yes, we do start off gently, of course. But as it accelerates, it's going to become more so. And at a certain point, and I watch it, I've taught thousands of people here just in this dimension alone, and then real side, etc. How many? Millions, hundreds of thousands, whatever. And most of them go because it reaches a certain point, and then that's it. And just like Mount Everest with all the bodies, 1/3 or halfway up, all the graveyards and whatever, not everybody makes it because it is a huge journey. But you can make it if you will decide to do it and to keep going. And yeah, at times it really sucks. It really does. It's not fun. It gets very aggravating. And you almost come to the conclusion sometimes that life hates you. It's like, what's this all about? And you become distorted and discouraged. Paul did too. At a certain point, before he took the rod of power, he shook his fist. He talked about it in one of his adventures. He says, shook his fist at heaven and said, why me? And when Rebazar would come to it late at night and, try and teach him to write things down, Paul was rather disgruntled. It's like, I need my sleep. And, I got to get up here at 1 a.m. in the morning or whatever it is too and sit here and write these things. I don't like this. Again, he went through his stuff and Rebazar wanted him to fast and things like this. And actually, when Paul first took over, Rebazar was actually appearing right beside him and telling him what to say. Rebazar wanted it a certain way to deliver this to the world. And finally, Paul got the gist of it. Even any of you that have read the Taggart Saying, and Paul went through all the different levels, when he returned, he sat there on the ground and said, I still haven't found myself. What he was really saying is that he hadn't fully recognized the is yet. But he had the experience. And so just like someone was here, I'll use Mr. Ritt's experience. The real recognition of what is possible through certain references and experiences comes through the real side first. It has to. And then as it's delivered, even though you don't recognize it, it is up to you to recognize it or not. And so again, you decide that. So as we go along here with this process, yes, in the beginning, we do the best we can to present to the world what is taking place. And so I looked at the world. I looked at this when I finally started to recognize more and more on a bigger scale how to refer to the world with the issues that are taking place. And the first thing that made sense to me with this world was food, water, and air, and especially food. Number one, people got to eat. Love does not come first. Love will not feed you. Love seems really cool and romantic in the movies, and Gene Kelly can dance in the rain, and it all can look great, but it ain't working. It ain't feeding the family, is it? Because people are walking the streets starving. So those are the first three things, and from there, little by little, moving into the humanitarian, but then calling them all humanitarian, because the humanitarian projects of this world are not what they seem. They're really brutal, is what they are. And so, again, you know, each situation is going to be what it is. And I give as many viewpoints as I can for people to have the assistance to be able to have their own adventure and to, have the knowledge and the references to, relate so that they can excel also. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea, Charles. And however you say it, that's going to be up to you, and you're going to learn as you go. And that's what I did too. I tested many, many things, and I'm constantly doing that and constantly reevaluating what is being presented. And some things I let go, and some things I become more involved in. It just depends upon seeing how they're going and how people are responding. So our position is to present it and then see who shows up. Yeah.
Now, upon joining the new presentation, I realized that it provides a confident backdrop against which to examine and analyze many things, especially when things are from a religious, spiritual, philosophical, or metaphysical angle. Though the new presentation has nothing to do with this. So I will comment on a statement by the Dalai Lama, which hitherto I would have taken with much reverence, almost like it was the ultimate dictum of life itself. He says, the prime purpose of life is to help others. And if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. Well, before this I would have considered it a very mighty statement that cannot be disputed at all. But here I am trying to examine it. It's not like before where that I imbibed everything without some critical examination, which has now been provided by the new presentation. Well, here I want to differentiate between true help and superficial help that just caters to the physical needs of the personal life, and which I think the Dalai Lama's statement points to. Well, I don't see the prime purpose of my life as being a do-gooder, because I think everyone ought to help themselves. Everyone ought to take care of themselves. Well, I see this statement as a kind of social trap into which most of the world has fallen, with most people folding their arms and hoping that others will come to their aid. And what is the result? At the end, everyone blames everyone else for not lending a hand. Well, I think the prime purpose of life should be to seek real guidance, real education, which will ultimately lead to real freedom with all its attendant benefits. So, can you put the Dalai Lama's statement or injunction sort of under the microscope of the new presentation, Duane? This has just been my own opinion. So what do you have to say about this?
Well, I would say, Charles, yes, that, yes, thank you for defining it. And that, yes, you're right on. And that is that, sure, there is the aspect of helping others. but there's also being their master and them being the slave, and you being the slave and them being the master, to where they expect you to do something for them. So again, what makes sense? And also, making the statement that, oh, you are to help others. Well, that is a cute statement, isn't it? But at the same time, everybody helps each other do what? Stay here and stay lost and unaware. So we just all help each other do what? Is he referring to the is or the true reality beyond the matrix of creation? No, he doesn't refer to that, because it's just like you just stay here and you take care of your neighbors and they take care of you, and you just do that for lifetimes and lifetimes as everybody grows old. So it does sound cool, doesn't it? It's very excellent marketing ploy. And on the other hand, he says, and not to hurt others. Well, this is where, it would be like, well, which it actually, we've all seen it, most people have, to where, after 9/11, Bush comes up there on the presidential podium and points his finger out there beyond the audience and says, those guys over there in that other country, they did it. It wasn't us. They did it. So again, the idea, it's always interesting. It's like, you're not to hurt others, but there's Obama up there making his speeches, creates 7 wars and kills everybody. So again, what they do is that they present themselves like the Dalai Lama, and anyone can look in the real side and they'll be shown who he really works for, okay, and what his real intent is. So again, it's where the intent comes from and who is saying it and what their real intent is. And so I would say a lot of people will be surprised it's not the marketing ploy that's deployed in this world. So again, when it comes to, oh, you shouldn't hurt others, but yet the whole world is basically destroying itself with everything it's doing, and it actually is doing that, but who's waking up to it? So again, these pretty words equal what? Absolutely nothing. Just like Harry on stage and the Pope and the presidents, etc. Yeah, it all sounds really good. So what they've done is they've set up all these monarchies to fool people into thinking that these are the know-it-alls, and their pretty speeches really do equal something, when actually these are the biggest destroyers on the planet. They are the destroyers. And they try and hide that. They try and offset it with their pretty words, but actually it doesn't work. But again, we're not putting these people on trial. That's not the idea. We're not after them. We're just recognizing what they're doing, and we're having our own adventure, creating our own position that's unique, which I call the new presentation. But that's just here. The bigger part, this is just a reference here. That's all this is, just a reference to what is more possible, and that becomes the real adventure. And this is where many of us see each other on the real side, and we're on this adventure together like a bunch of hikers up the mountain. We want to go this way, and the boys are leading us past all the obstacles that we have agreed to in the past. So it's so cool. So yes, you did it excellent, Charles, and seeing that, because it's all marketing ploy, and the better it sounds, the better marketing ploy it is. These guys are good, aren't they?
It's we are not in the new presentation. We cannot even see. What he's saying is limited to the eyes of the world. Oh, it's such a great figure, that everything he says should just be imbibed, because it's a great personality. There again, it's a spiritual figure. The presidents take rounds, they line up to receive him, and when he's a world mover, he's a mover and a shaker. But here in the new presentation, you find that we take his words with a pinch of salt. We can see through the deception, the marketing ploy, as you've said. And I want to really be thankful that I joined the new presentation, or else I wouldn't have been able to see this at all. I wouldn't have been listening to you give such excellent explanation of what is going on. So I think that the new presentation is everything. In fact, everyone should actually be a part of it, in order that the scales should fall off their eyes. Thank you very much.